Good evening and welcome to the FEMA Region 2 Individual and Preparedness Webinar Series. My name is Allison Albright and I'm the Regional Preparedness Liaison for FEMA Region 2. I'm going to provide a few technical considerations before we begin. Today's proceedings are being recorded and captioned. The archived event will be available on the FEMA website in the coming weeks. You should hear audio through your computer speaker, so please ensure that your volume is turned up so you may hear the proceedings accordingly. In the top right corner, we ask if you'd like to receive news and updates from Region 2. If so, please enter your email address and we'll be sure to add you to the distribution list. We will have a question and answer session after the presentation concludes. You'll see a Q&A pod in the lower right-hand corner. Please feel free to submit your questions about the subject matter there, and time permitting, we'll do our best to answer them. Finally, the PowerPoint presentation from today will be available for you to download in the file share pod as a PDF. You can click on the file and download it using the download button. With that, I'd like to turn it over to the Region 2 Community Preparedness Officer to introduce our speaker and today's proceedings.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Debbie Costa, the Community Preparedness Officer for FEMA Region 2. On behalf of our team working to strengthen preparedness across the region, I'd like to welcome you to our Preparedness Webinar Series. In FEMA's 4-year strategic plan, the agency's Goal 1 is to build a culture of preparedness. The Region 2 Individual and Community Preparedness Program is focused on preparing communities for disasters by providing useful information and training, inspiring people to act and be ready for any emergency. As part of that goal, we're pleased to be hosting today's webinar on CERT team building. To maintain a productive and cohesive team, it's essential to identify strengths, challenges, and contributions of each team member. We'll look at characteristics of high-functioning teams and discuss team-building exercises you can conduct in your own CERT environment. Our guest speaker today, Raquel Solon, is an FEI Workforce Resilience Business Solution Engineer. Raquel is responsible for helping organizations within a wide range of industry, including retail, higher ed, healthcare, mental health, and human services, as well as general business and manufacturing, determine and implement a holistic crisis management system. Raquel is also responsible for the delivery of workplace violence prevention, leadership development, and crisis management training. She is experienced in reviewing current training and policies and procedures to identify gaps and work with clients towards a solution. Raquel, we're so happy to have you back with us today. I'm going to hand the floor over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Deb. It is a pleasure to be back with everyone. So, as we start looking at 2021, hopefully we have a little less stress than 2020, right? So, but knowing that and knowing what has, gone on and what can go on, we just want to remind everybody about some ground rules in the training. What happens in the training room stays in the training room. We are going to respect each other's thoughts, opinions, and ideas. All of our perspectives and experiences that we bring to the table is what makes our environments rich and diverse, as well as creative. So we're going to understand that and just, utilize some respect and dignity for opinions that may differ than your own, which you all do very well. So tangents are good distractions. However, at the end of the day, we do only have a limited amount of time that we're going to be together. So we will stay on track as well. You're going to get out of it what you put into it. If you have sat through any of the trainings that we have done through 2020 thus far, you know that I will be asking questions and asking you to participate. That helps you to become better trainers, as well as to take information and for it to kind of solidify in your brains so that you can walk away with some tangible items. There, of course, is the parking lot for questions, as was mentioned. And this last one kind of comes from, if anybody is familiar with a cartoon from a little while ago. It's one of my favorite childhood cartoons, but Fat Albert and the Junkyard Gang. That was a group of mischievous kids who would get into some trouble during Saturday morning cartoons. But at the end of the cartoon, there would always be a moral to the story or a lesson learned. And so in the words of that narrator, sit back, relax, and if you're not careful, you just might learn something. So we're going to go ahead and move forward with our objectives for today. They were gone over in a little bit by Deb, and so we'll just review those again, and that is to understand the nature of teams and teamwork. There is an I in team, and unlike the Facebook, Twitter, social media meme that says there is an I in team, and you know where it is, it's in this A right here, only it's not a very nice meme, so I won't say it in completion. There really is an I in team, and we'll talk about the I. We're going to look at those challenges and characteristics of teams both and discuss those practical activities that you can do. And like Deb mentioned, we will open it up for questions and comments and have some discussion as well at the end. So pre-test, we know that if you're in one of our sessions, there's going to be a pre-test. But if you haven't been in one of our sessions, don't worry, it's not a graded test. This is really just to help us get our brains flowing and thinking about content and get some interaction going. So what do you think? Teams can accomplish more than individuals, true or false? So start typing in those answers. I'm watching the chat. We'll go through them. All right, so we got a bunch of trues coming in. True, true, true. Do I see any falses coming in? I don't see any falses coming in. Wow. All right. So far it looks like I got a 50-50. I see that 50-50, Morris. Thank you for that alternative answer. All right. So got some more trues coming in. Sorry that some of you are having some bad weather, it looks like. So got some weather rolling in too. They can accomplish more things than an individual. Okay. Oh, you did say false. Sorry, Valerie, I missed it. Everything was scrolling by so fast. I do apologize for that. So I should probably put my reading glasses on. It is a little bit small font. All right. We've got lots of truths that came in. Good. All right. So we've got a couple of alternative answers that came in, and we will talk about that. So teams can accomplish more than an individual, true or false. Certainly I think I'm going to piggyback off of what Duell just said, which is with the right team, right? So it depends on how your team works together, if it's cohesive, if you have good relationships on the team. There are some advantages to working in a team, and there are also some disadvantages to working in a team. So we will talk about those as well. Sorry about that. If you heard me yell at my dog, I tried to mute myself. All right, I've got a dog barking in the background. It's the fun of working from remote from home. So welcome to 2021. So what are the benefits? I said there were some advantages and some disadvantages. What are the benefits of working on a team? What works well? What are some good things that happen from working on a team? Let's see, creativity, collaboration, sharing of ideas. Groups can multitask and bring their individual skills. Nice. Synergy. Okay, good. More ideas, more feedback, more manpower, different perspectives. Many hands make light work. That is so true. Different points of view. A group can multitask and bring their individual skills. You can get buy-in. There's more energy, fresh ideas. Larger skill sets, that's right, because, I'm really great at some things, but I'm really not so great at other things. So, my strengths can support your opportunities, and your strengths can support my opportunities. Individuals with different strengths and weaknesses. Oh, sorry, Samantha, that's exactly what we were just saying. So good job, Samantha. All right, inclusivity, diversity of ideas, nice. It takes two to carry a large ice bucket. All right, I like that analogy. Many hands make light the work. Safety, ooh, that's a good response. So when we work in teams, we can be safer. Great ideas, major resources, diversity, support, fill in the gaps, camaraderie, learn from each other. You can have members to put in strengths and have less burnout. I like that answer too. You can get some criticism. Yeah, for sure. You know what? That is actually a benefit. Criticism is good, constructive criticism that is, because then we can learn and grow and change and develop. That's always good. More ideas, shared success, motivation. Teams work differently and experience different expertise. Yep, I like that answer. Thank you for that. Creativity and accountability. Nice. Time to respond. Backup in case any member needs to be out so the task doesn't fall behind. I like that. Integration and proposing of ideas. So very cool. All right, good answers, y'all. You did a great job on those. You know, I see the diversity, several diversity comments in that. And really when you're talking about diversity, I want you to, so we're not talking about diversity today, but since so many answers said diversity, inclusivity, and not so much the equity, but you were going on that DEI track, I do want to say that when we think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, what you're really saying in these answers is you are looking at diversity from a big D. That's what we call it. The big D is diversity of thoughts, perspectives, ideas, opinions, personalities, communication styles. That's the big D in diversity. The little d in diversity are the things that we get categorized by our demographics, like gender, age, race, ethnicity, orientation, things like that. That certainly does contribute to diversity, and we want those things in our workplaces, in our environments, and on our teams. But when we can get to the big D, our teams can accomplish so much more. So I see somebody says that the volume has gone out. Is that true for everybody? Is anybody hearing me? I hear you. Okay, somebody said no. I don't know. I'm wondering how you could respond no if you didn't hear me. All right. All right, so the volume's low, no problems. Okay, the line is fine. Okay, so maybe it's your computer then. You might want to look at your menu bar settings, your task bar, just make sure your speakers are on. If not, you can chat in the chat box, and Allison is very technically inclined, and she will assist you with that. So, all right. All right, so next, our next question is going to be, what are some common challenges of teamwork? So we talked about advantages or benefits. Now let's talk about the disadvantages or the challenges that come about from working in a team. Because, you know, there's two sides to every coin. All right, so I'm going to scroll up and hopefully I can get to the answers. Okay. Communication can be a challenge, group think, different styles of working, definitely disagreements, too many chiefs, diversity in communication styles, combining ideas, too many ideas. Coming to a consensus, yeah, that can be difficult. Time management can be difficult. Too many cooks in the kitchen, too many differing opinions, strong personalities. All right. Lack of training. People may not get along. Working with different personalities, disagreements, personalities, too many different ideas, language barriers, delegation. All right, I like that somebody put that on there. Team members not listening to each other. Yeah. Listening is part of communication. Communication style differences, diversity ideas. Oop, I lost the comment. Diversity of ideas, whereby, where did it go? All right, well, I'm going to try to find that one again because my thing scrolled down. I do apologize. Oh, here we go. Diversity of ideas, whereby you cannot come to a consensus, different methods of communication, personalities, all right, groupthink, disagreements and roles. Thank you that you can hear me in California. I appreciate that, Jason. Different backgrounds and styles, different trainings, different languages, too many leaders, all right, or too many leaders and not enough workers, different ideas not presented because they fear rejection. Yeah. Hard to hold any one person accountable, some not agreeing with the leader, bullying, judgment, training lacking, sharing information, poor leadership. They might not know how to work together. I like that. Yep. So that's where training comes in. They need good leaders, difference of skill sets, a good leader and when to follow. Sometimes there's bad ideas. Too many cooks spoil the broth. I love all these metaphors. So people not being open-minded to each other's thoughts. Leadership demands followership. You know, it really does, Philip. So not everybody can be a leader of every single thing. And when you're on a team, part of the team member's role is to play their role. So one of the things that we do at home, and not understanding their role, Morris said, so I appreciate that. You typed that in before I started talking about the role. So one of the things that my husband and I do, we both love to cook, and we both, we both do activities in the farm that we have. But if I'm cooking, I'm the boss in the kitchen, and he just does what I say. If he's cooking, he tells me what to do because it's his recipe. He's in charge. I need to just play my role. So if he needs me to peel potatoes or cut up some onions or, whatever it is, that's what I do. And we have had to have that discussion and that agreement. So even in a small team of 2 people, because otherwise we're both trying to be the leaders and we both have our way of doing it, but it's not my project, right? So I'm not the leader in that sense. So we do have to play our roles, and that can be difficult for some people. So when you are on a team, understanding your role, if you don't know your role, asking what your role is, but then you have a responsibility to do that role. So let's see, what other sort of comments have come in? Too large a team for structured communication or inclusion to be possible, certainly. Let's see, some people are leaders, some people are followers. So you want to find strengths to help everybody? Yeah, definitely. Unexpected changes and reluctant to the changes in some of the team players. Yep, bring difficulties, definitely. Learn to listen. Yes, definitely. Inability to keep individuals engaged as a team. Systemic issues and stagnation, for sure. Make sure you're trained for your role so you don't feel out of place. Yep. The buck stops at the team leader anyway. It does. I mean, that's the whole role of the responsibility is when you're a leader, you have ownership of the objectives and the goals and getting the team rallied. So a good leader is out there in front with the team versus a manager who is standing behind telling them what to do, right? So a good leader is down on the ground working with the team, making sure everybody knows their role, making sure they're trained, giving them, giving them input and feedback. Good. All right. I see somebody says idea stealing. Yep, that can happen. Not acknowledging other people for the value that they bring to the team. For sure. That can definitely be a challenge, Luana, for sure. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next question. The last question, and you can name 3 or you can just type in 1, and I'll do my best to keep up with all of the chat comments that come in. But what I want you to do is name characteristics of high-functioning teams. Communication, psychological safety, integrity, backup behavior, teamwork, loyalty to the leader, cooperation, roles understood, collaboration, cohesion, creativity, integration of ideas, cohesion, chain of command, collaboration. All right, loyalty again. See here, gelling and performing, I'm sorry. Gelling and performing, valuing your team members, respect, trust, 3 trusts in a row. Teamwork, being a good listener, backing each other up, team working efficiency. Communication, safety, and effectiveness. That's good. I like that. Communication, teamwork, respect, clear rules, respect, clearly communicate, sorry, I can't provide any clarity, Patricia. Sorry. Clarity, communication, and respect. Integration, leadership, and respect for others. Building trust, focus, respect, good. Good interpersonal skills and diversity, collaborative solutions, encouraging, effective, clear communication, work with a flow so all know their roles, goal orientation, communication, cooperation, and chain of command, a clear chain of command, quality, communication, and diversity. Thank you for that. Gelling as a team, and trust, Communication, cooperation, direction, accountability, communication, work sync, purpose, job accomplishment, attitude. Oh, attitude is so huge, right? Know your roles, respect, do what you say you will do. That falls into integrity, doesn't it? Do what you say you're going to do. Don't do what you say you're not going to do. The ability to be a leader, all right? You can certainly have the ability, and certainly disagree with the loyalty to the leader. It has the potential to minimize the group input. I can appreciate that perspective, right? Clear chain of command, unbiased. Ooh, that's a good one, Brenda. I mean, we all have biases. Every single person in this training room has a bias. And I train on unconscious biases, and guess what? I still got bias. Right? Everybody has biases, but that's a different training. All right, engagement, trained and a feeling of bringing real value to the community that we serve. Nice. Praise in public, chastise in private. Yep, or I will change that a little bit, Daryl. That is a good saying, but what I say is praise in public and coach in private. So you're offering those coaching opportunities in private, or criticize in private too. Teamwork, communication, integrity, open communication. That's right. So being able to have voice and choice, people who listen, perseverance, giving credit, distribution of tasks, valuing members of the team. Those are great. Respect, loyalty, and trust, having room for mistakes. So when you have a healthy team, I'm going to sit on this one for a second, Daniel, because I like that. When you have a healthy team and when there's healthy relationships and cohesiveness amongst the team, members and leadership and everybody who's involved, you're allowed to make mistakes because, you can, if we had video, we're not doing video right now, but if we had video, I'd say raise your hand if you've never made a mistake, right? And I'm sure we wouldn't have a lot of mistakes or a lot of hands in the air because everybody makes mistakes. So the opportunity is that when you have cohesiveness and healthy relationships on your team, it's okay to ask for help. Because if I feel comfortable and I feel like I'm not going to be diminished and criticized in order to ask for help or to ask for clarity, then less mistakes can happen because I can seek out that knowledge and information. Mistakes may still happen, and mistakes can then just be seen as mistakes. But a lot of times mistakes happen because people are afraid to ask the question because they're afraid of the fallout from not knowing or feeling like they should know. So you want to build that up in your teams. Staying in your lane, appreciation of others' achievements and abilities, having fun, yes, that's important. Compassion, sharing awards, the wins, lose. Endurance and understanding, communication, All right, so somebody is biased to pie, so you fall into my husband's category. I'm a cake girl, quite honestly. Ensure everyone understands the big picture. Stay in your lane, creativity. So staying in your lane. So there's a couple of people who are like, stay in your lane, stay in your lane. So I want to give me a little bit of understanding about that. When you say stay in your lane, are you really saying you want people to play their role? Because if we are not open to playing in other people's sandboxes and hearing other people's perspectives, then that can actually could be a disadvantage to a team. Just so you know, I want to put that out there, food for thought. So if those of you who said, and there was a few comments that said stay in your lane, if you want to expand on that answer, I'd love to hear what it means from your understanding or what you meant by it, okay? I'm not saying it's necessarily wrong. What I'm saying, though, is that depending on how that is conveyed, it could be a disadvantage to a team. So to do the assignment that is given. So I'm going to assume that that's the, yep, stay in your lane. Okay, gotcha. So do the assignment, stay in your lane, gotcha, okay. So that's helpful, just to understand what you meant by that. Certainly if I'm given a task like this training, I need to complete this task, right? So I need to do what is, do my best to my ability in order to convey this information. So I gotcha. So I appreciate that clarification. Thank you for that. Definitely. So color outside of the lines, venture into new roles. Okay, good. All right. And I appreciate the second voice for cake. If you like cake, you can follow me on Instagram. It's Rocky Bakes with Love. I haven't posted a lot, though, yet this year. So everyone contributes and participates. Sorry, that was a shameless plug. All right, here we go, though, for the cake lovers. I do put pies on there, too, for the pie people. All right. So that was a great pretest. It really got our conversation going, and we started thinking about what teams mean, what can be successful on a team, what can be detrimental, and then looking at characteristics. And that's all going to tie in. And yeah, definitely, I will second your comment, Robin, where everybody contributes and participates. That is good characteristics of high-functioning teams. So let's look at teams. So your CERT team, your Community Emergency Response Team, is a program educates volunteers about disaster preparedness for hazards that may impact your area, trains in basic disaster response skills such as fire safety, light search and rescue, team organization, and disaster medical operations. So that is specific to y'all. Thinking about understanding teams and the functionality of teams in general, teamwork is individuals working together to accomplish more than they could do alone. Because, as you've already said in the pretest, many hands make light the work. You can get more done with more individuals. You have different ideas, different perspectives, different ways of doing things, right? You can delegate, you can get things done. But more exciting than that, it's satisfying and enjoyable. It's satisfying and enjoyable because we were built, our brains are hardwired for relationships. So to be able to work cohesively on a team actually brings a sense of fulfillment and satisfaction. So that's also the intrinsic value of teams. Now, teams can be both interactive and interdependent, where we're working with other individuals, where we have our own station, where we need to play our role. Certainly there can be many different types of teams, and on the same team, there can be many different opportunities where maybe you're depending on another individual, you're interacting with an individual, and yet your role is singular. So there's a lot of different ways that teams function. There are 5 essentials for resilient teams. So, and this is adapted, as you see, from the 5 dysfunctions of a team. So the 5 essentials, though, are to focus on results. So what are the results? What is the end goal? What are we here to do, right? So results doesn't necessarily mean, like I'm going to, I don't know, I used to be in sales, so I'm going to use a sales one, working in retail, making sure that we sell, 2% more than we sold the next day, than the previous day. That is a result, but when we're talking about results, we also mean getting the tasks accomplished that we're supposed to accomplish. So getting things done, meeting the goals. What are our objectives? However you want to say that. Achieving the mission. That's right. So whatever the mission is, thank you for that. Everybody, together everyone accomplishes the mission for team. Thank you, Jacqueline, for that, that acrostic. Is that what it's called? Acronym? I'm not sure. So delegating, being safe, thank you for those comments. The other part of a resilient team is accountability. So I am accountable to the team at large. I'm accountable to the leader, and I'm accountable to myself. If you're the leader, you have accountability too. You have accountability to those team members to communicate well, to help them to understand their roles, to ensure that everybody is being safe and productive, right? So there's accountability all around. And there's a commitment. 5 essentials for a resilient team is that people are committed, that we're here and we're going to do what needs to be done, that we're not lackadaisical or, kind of meh, about what's going on. So, and then, understanding that there's going to be conflict. And we did a session on conflict, managing through that, as well as effective communication earlier on in 2020. So understand there's going to be some conflict and embracing that, because we all have different perspectives, different ideas, and hopefully you're going to use some of those tools to work through that conflict situation. And then most significantly is trust. So having trust on the team, that I know that my team is going to be there to support me. We're going to keep each other safe. We are going to work well together. That I'm not worried about people who are, we don't have poor relations. Instead, we have good relations. So I'm not worried about people, talking behind my back and different things like that. So trust is key. Trust is essential for a resilient team. So as you're thinking about building your teams, those are the 5 essentials for resiliency in your team. Not saying they're the only things that are important to your team, but part of resiliency certainly are these 5, excuse me. So I said that there is an I in team, and there is an I in team. So the reason why there's an I in team is that each of you, last time I looked at the participants, and I haven't looked in a minute, but we had over 100 and about 30 or 40, there may be more now since we've started. But each of you, over 100 people, are all individuals. So there is an I in team because I am an individual. So the 5 will be available on the slide when you have the slide deck. You're going to make me try to remember it. I'm going to go back. I will answer that question right away just so that you can see it one more time. So here's the 5. Focus on results, accountability, commitment, embrace conflict, and trust. That's the 5. So results, accountability, commitment, embrace, conflict, and trust. All right, so the I in team, though, is the individual. So this has been adapted from the MANT system from a team perspective. What I would like you to do is I would like you to take a few moments to think about your top 5 characteristics. These 16 characteristics are found in healthy, thriving societies. Now, a lot of times when people think about societies, they think about, their neighborhood or their city or their state or their country, and that is true. But what else is a society is your team. So these 16 characteristics are present and are engaged with in thriving societies. So what are your 5? If you were to choose 5 of these words that were your main focus, where you need to have them wherever you are, wherever you work, whatever you do, what are your top 5? So take a moment and think about that, and then we'll talk about it. And the answer to your question about if this is a recorded webinar, I believe that answer is yes. So I believe that they hit record in the beginning. So what are your top 5? The 5 that you absolutely have to have, no matter where you work, no matter what you're doing, no matter what team you're on. What are your top 5? So we've got some coming in. Trust, patience, quality, kindness, respect. Trust, quality. Oops, I lost it. Here we go. Trust, quality, integrity, respect, and trust again. All right. Honesty, kindness, and trust. Integrity, justice, patience, trust, fairness. Respect, integrity, honesty, trust, fairness. So trust, respect, fairness, honor, and justice. Kindness, trust, honesty, temperance, humility. Trust, honor, integrity, humility, honesty, and justice. Trust, respect, honor, kindness, forgiveness. Fairness, integrity, honesty, courage, respect. Courage, quality, justice, trust, and fairness. Respect is number 1. Yep. Honesty, I'm not sure what cottage is. Courage probably. I bet spell check gotcha. Honesty, respect, integrity, trust. Integrity, respect, courage, justice, trust. Trust, integrity, temperance, patience. Kindness, trust, honor, fairness. Honesty, quality, respect, honor. So patience, integrity, humility. patience, trust, fairness, forgiveness, honesty, patience, courage. So a lot of these, I'm not going to be able to get through all of them. I do appreciate you typing those in. What I'm seeing is a significant amount of respect, trust, fairness. Let me go scroll here through here again. And honesty. There's a lot of honesty. Integrity. Okay. Patience. Good. So, so these 5, you will notice that not every person, if you scroll through those comments yourself, you will notice that not everybody has the same 5. But that a lot of your 5 are along the same lines. And so even if somebody, and I'm going to pick on, who can I pick on? Let me look at some comments here. All right, I'm going to pick on Brenda. You have patience, trust, respect, fairness, and honesty. So I'm going to venture to say that if Brenda and I had a conversation and we needed to come to an agreement of what our 5 were, that we could probably, my biggest one is integrity. My big one is integrity. That's my big word. I can pick 3, 4 other ones to support that, but, you know, integrity, because you can't have integrity if you're not honest, right? So I bet Brenda and I could come to some agreement about the honesty integrity word, because if you're not honest, if you're lying, you don't have integrity. So, you know, we could come to some agreement in that. And the reason why we do this activity and we want you to start thinking about it is because even though you have your own 5, if you were to sit down and have a discussion on your teams about what are your top 5, I bet you would find a lot of similarity, and you would be able to figure out from a team perspective, if you have a team of 15 people, and then you broke into 3 subgroups, 5 people on each subgroup team, those 5 people would come up with 5 core values. And then as you then got the teams, those 5 people's core values, and wrote them on a board, you would have several characteristics where you overlapped. And I'm going to guess that based on all of the answers, that a big one would be trust and a big one would be respect, because we saw that one throughout many, many, many of the answers. So that would probably be your mission statement. You know, on this team, we are going to trust and respect each other. And we're going to facilitate that through some core values of, and then your supporting characteristics like courage, kindness, patience, integrity, forgiveness, whatever, you know, your team came up with. So I definitely agree with you, Stevie, seeing trust in integrity and honesty. That's right, because I don't trust people who aren't honest, right? So that's why integrity is my big one, because so many words fall into integrity for me. Now, that's not saying that my answer is the only answer or it's the quote-unquote right answer, but it's the right answer for me. And I would be able to give and take with some of my team members as we spoke about those words and figured out what they meant to us. My husband's big word is respect, right? But in his big word of respect, you don't respect him if you're lying to him. So honesty falls in respect, right? Integrity falls in respect, doing what you say you're going to do. So we talk about these characteristics because we want to figure out what they mean to us. This is also a preliminary activity for some of you team leaders that you can do on your teams to figure out what is the motivation and what is going to help build your team together by figuring out what people's top 5 are. So this is an activity that actually I do run. Many times when I'm starting a group, I have trainings that run for 4 days, and I will run this activity at the very beginning of day 1 so that we can establish what our mission is and so that we can establish what our core values are. So these 16 core values come from the MANT system, who has utilized them with permission from Lundy. So Lundy was a counselor who was looking at characteristics in, like I said, in societies and in places. So these were identified through the experts, so to speak, not from Raquel. So that's why they're not changed, and they are the 16 as they are, because that's what has been found in the research. What else has been found in the research, and why we don't have other ones in there, so that I can address some of the comments coming in, what also has been found in the research is that societies that are lacking any of these 16 core values are also on the downturn. They're on the decline. They're not thriving. They're not growing. They're not building. So they actually are struggling. And so you can see that in workplaces or on teams or in families or in neighborhoods, in communities, etc., where these 16 characteristics are not I guess, being embraced, so for lack of a better word. So, all right. So let's go ahead and move on. So that's the I. There is an I in team. Each of us has our 5 core values. Additionally, with the I in team is, I bring things to the team. Each of you are going to bring your mood, you're going to bring your approach, and you're going to bring your ACEs or your background, your adverse childhood experiences. We've talked about that trauma before. So you're going to bring your experiences that you have. You bring that to the table and you bring that to the team. And so that's the other part of the I, is that we want to have some understanding and compassion and patience with each other, knowing that we are bringing ourselves to the table. Some of it you can change. You can influence and decide your mood and your attitude. You can influence and decide your approach. With some of the traumas that you may have experienced, though, what you may be able to do is recognize them and then understand them a little bit for yourself. But this is what comes to the table on each of our teams. Now, as we look at high-functioning teams, here we have one. All right, I don't know, anybody familiar with this? Who's going to type it in first? All right, I'm looking. We've got like 5 people typing now, so race to the keyboard. All right, it's the A team. Yes, all right. Lots of people know the A team. So first, we have John Hannibal Smith. He's that gentleman sitting in the middle holding the cigar. He's the leader of the A team. He's the brilliant tactician, the master of disguise. Hannibal is distinguished by his cigar smoking, his black gloves, his disguises, and his catchphrase, which is, I love it when a plan comes together. And he is always on the jazz, which means that Hannibal thrives on adventure and life-threatening situations. He really seems to enjoy every situation that they get into. And then Templeton, he's our smooth-talking, suave, very successful, with the women, serves as the A-team's con man and scrounger. He's able to get his hands on just about anything that they need. He's effectively second in command behind Hannibal, although, a little trivia for you, Murdoch technically outranks him. But Templeton is the one who arranges for supplies, equipment, and uses sensitive information using numerous scams and hustles and trying to get what they need, right? Then we have Bosco Albert Baracus, or in other words, as many of you may know him, BA. So he is highly skilled mechanic and the A-team's regular Mr. Fix-It. That is Mr. T there. He is the master of arms. He's basically the public persona of Mr. T himself. He's a skilled fighter, very easily roused to anger, definitely earning him the nickname Bad Attitude, even though that's not really what it stands for. It stands for Bosco Albert. And despite his reputed bad attitude, he is a super nice guy at heart. He has a very special fondness for children and keeping them safe. He never drinks alcohol. Instead, on the show, you're always seeing him drink milk. And then lastly, we have Howling Mad Eye, or not Mad Eye, sorry, that's Harry Potter. Woo, crossed my genres there. Howling Mad Murdoch. He's the best chopper pilot in the Vietnam War, who is either very mentally unstable or exceptionally good at pretending to be so. And, you know, he is not officially part of the A-team, in case you didn't know that. Another little trivia tidbit for you. And so he was not tried by the military, but he is often on their missions. He is identifying with fictional characters and certainly has a belief of high intelligence and other things. So here we are. We have 4 very different eyes on a team. And the reason why I love using this example is because they are so very different. And, you know, they have their conflicts and they have their struggles, but they are very cohesively because they don't try to do things that are not part of their role. They play to their strengths. And then, again, my strengths or your strengths can support other people's areas of opportunity, and we can be successful. Whoa, okay. Apparently my scrolly thing works while I'm presenting. So what are some of the challenges and characteristics of teams? We're going to move on. Challenges, certainly we can have an increase in frustration. There can be unhealthy competition. Rigid group norms, procedures, quality of relationship is poor, absence of trust. Allison, I'm going to see if you have any comments for the group. It seems like another person has lost sound. I don't know if it's individual or as a whole. Absence of trust, people not developing, dearth of new ideas and creativity, domination by the leader. That's why we have to kind of be careful with some of that, you know, putting the leader too much on a pedestal versus being a working leader who is down working with the team. Warring cliques or subgroups, avoidance approach to the potential conflicts. We've got to address the conflicts on our teams. They're going to happen. So high turnover, absenteeism, grievances, transfers, etc. That's a challenge, and then work scheduled delays. So all of these can be challenging to teams. They can, I see your comment about the words describe quote-unquote negativeness. You know, certainly they can be perceived as negative. You know, these challenges on teams, though, are very real. They happen on all different types of teams, and so we want to be aware of them so we can address them early, so we can work to mitigate them, get in front of them, and build cohesive teams instead. There's really no difference whether you are working in a call center, doing sports, working with colleagues on your CERT team, singing in a choir, you know, out in your community. All the challenges are the same. So you can apply those same challenges to whatever type of team you're talking about. And I already spoke about the fact that, you know, we, in our little team of 2 in our family, you know, we know what our conflicts are going to be, and it's going to be if we're working together. Somebody needs to identify, this is my project, I'm going to be the leader, and we're going to do the way that, you know, I see. And if I have questions, or if I have, you know, if I have struggling, I'm definitely going to ask for help, because that's, you know, what I do and my husband does as well. But what it means, though, is that Raquel doesn't try to take over my husband's steak recipe, for example. So, high-functioning teams, on the flip side, they have clear objectives and agreed-to goals, right? So we're having communication. We're talking about what's going on. We're agreeing to the goals together so that there's buy-in, there's voice, there's choice. We know, we understand. We're going to move forward. There's openness and confrontation. It's okay that I don't agree with what's going on. I am able to explain myself and my voice and my position, and then we move on. Sometimes it impacts the outcome, and other times I just get to be heard, right? Just because you get to have voice and choice and say what's going on in your mind or your opinion doesn't mean, though, that the team has to follow it, right? There's support and trust on our teams, so we want to be supportive of each other. I agree with your comment, Karen. I see that in there. Cooperation and conflict. Cooperation and conflict. So, you know, we have to work on being able to move through conflict in an effective and productive way. And conflict isn't easy. Conflict feels really, really yucky and really, really scary for a lot of people. But the more we talk about it and the more we embrace it and we use the skills and the tools to manage through conflict, we can move into cooperation and collaboration, because allowing people to then speak their voice and to figure out what the best solutions are through those activities, through brainstorming, through looking at advantages and disadvantages, etc., that's a way to mitigate conflict. So, and it actually does work. You have sound procedures on high-functioning teams. So it means the process makes sense. Raquel loves to work smarter, not harder, right? So nothing gets me more frustrated than feeling like I'm doing wasted work and wasted steps. So sound procedures help with people's frustration and with the functionality of the team. Appropriate leadership. There needs to be a leader, but it should be appropriate. You know, good leaders are good listeners. Again, they understand roles and responsibilities. You know, they are praising in public and coaching in private. Having regular review of the team and the members and what needs to happen, where the challenges are, how can we be better. And then individual development, so taking time for training, helping people to be successful, and sound intergroup relationships. So that goes back to healthy relationships. And how we have healthy relationships is understanding each other. That's why I know that my husband's #1 characteristic is respect. He knows that Raquel's #1 characteristic is integrity. And while some of those characteristic subcategories overlap, that's, you know, we know that about each other, and we build on those strengths. So you definitely decide who's the sous chef is, Robert. And in fact, one of our, I'm going to share a personal item here while I change slides. One of our anniversary gifts very early on, it was linen, I think, maybe the 2nd or 3rd anniversary gift. I got my husband a apron that said Iron Chef Christopher, and mine said sous chef Raquel. So I'm definitely the sous chef. All right. But I'm okay with that. All right. So we're going to talk now. We're going to spend the rest of the time we have together to talk about some different activities. You will get write-ups for these because it's going to be very hard to, you know, unfortunately, we're not in person. This was going to be an in-person training, and, you know, it is what it is. We all are moving through the new world of virtual sessions. So you will get write-ups of how to conduct these activities on your teams. As Deb mentioned, we're going to talk through them, and then you will be able to conduct them when you're able to be in person again, and you're doing some team building activities. So this activity, the setup of this is you would have your team divide into equal groups of 4 to 6 people per group. It doesn't really work very well once you get past 6 because of the activity structure. So what you're going to need for each group is a deck of playing cards. I like to utilize the standard black and red faces, I guess, you know, the standard cards where you have clubs that are black and hearts that are red. But I also like to throw in, depending on how many people I'm doing this activity with, an anomaly deck where the cards are like pink. I've got a pink deck. So the hearts are pink and the clubs are pink and the diamonds are pink and the spades are pink. Everything's pink. Because it throws people off. I like to throw in some clinchers because what do you do when you have to work with something unexpected, right? But each group gets a deck of playing cards. You're going to tell the groups the purpose of the exercise is to work as efficiently as possible on your teams to complete the task. So the task is you are going to lay out your deck of playing cards exactly as it's outlined here on the screen. So this is what their goal is. You would project this, or you would give them a piece of paper. You could print this out and give them something to follow along with. But the first row is going to be hearts, and then the next row is going to be spades, diamonds, and then clubs. All of the cards should be in neat, tidy rows, no cards touching, and the aim is to complete the task as fast as possible. You are in direct competition with the other teams in the room. So that's one way to do it. You can be in direct competition with the teams in the room. I'm giving you two options in this one. One is that they just need to beat a timer. So, but for the one where they're in direct competition for the other teams, what you're going to do is you are going to shuffle the deck of cards and then have them take 2 minutes to discuss the strategy. Each team is going to put their cards out once you say ready, set, go. Then they're going to yell done, and you as the judge, as the team leader, will go and make sure that they followed the activity correctly. So what you're looking for is, did they get the aces all in a row, the fives, the jacks, the nines, etc.? Are they neat, not touching, etc.? You're going to have them do anything that they need to fix. I always do this activity in 3 rounds, and then what I do after I've approved each of the teams done, when they say they're done and it's accurate and it looks like this sheet of paper or this projection on the slide, is they shuffle their decks, they put them back in the box, and then I say, okay, we're going to go again. And then I have them switch decks. So they trade decks with a different group, because that way a new group gets the anomaly deck. So we do that. You can also have them run this activity where you're having them beat a stopwatch. So what you're going to do is you would have them guess how many minutes it would take for them to complete this task. And they write that down, and then they try to beat this time. So that's one activity. The point of the activity, though, so what are they learning? The main point that they are learning for this activity is that participants, the more you practice and experience things, the easier it becomes. It takes planning and delegation and dividing work in order to be successful and achieve the results in an efficient way possible. And this kind of speaks to some of the individuals. You will have different personalities on your teams, and I'm sure you do, where you have some of those stronger personalities who want to take over and take charge and do everything. Those teams are not going to be as efficient. So it shows the importance of planning and delegating and dividing work. And so teams will need to utilize good communication, coordination, cooperation, delegation, hopefully, and positive team interactions. So usually what happens, what I see when I run this activity, is they usually don't come up with a good strategy the first practice round. It takes a long time to get the task done, whether they're trying to beat whatever time they projected they could get it done, or you know, they're competing against each other. I've not ever done it. I think I've done it one time against the stopwatch. I guess I have at least once, but I didn't like it that way, so I always have them compete against each other. Just gives it a little bit more interaction. And then what happens is they start talking and figuring out a good strategy, because at first everybody kind of wants to do their own way, or you'll have the people who step out and they don't contribute. So by the time you get to the third one, they've really solidified a strategy. They're working together. There's good communication. So many of these activities, well, maybe not many, but a couple of these activities that you're going to see, it's like a 3-time run. You do it over and over and one more time. So you will have a printout to this activity in these directions. I do see that somebody says they've done something similar using jigsaw puzzles of different sizes. Yep, that just reminds me, that's good. I have a puzzle activity as well, where I have 4 different jigsaw puzzles. You can buy a 4-pack at Walmart. And then what I do is I separate the pieces, and I put the 4 different pieces. You know, I'll take one puzzle and put the 4 different pieces in each tray, or not the 4 different pieces, excuse me, the pieces, and put them in the 4 different trays, so that each puzzle then is a mix-up of all the other puzzles. And they've got to work with their team, but they've also got to work with other teams to get their puzzle completely successful and completed. So I like that idea, Allie. Thanks for sharing that. So, oh, that's exactly what you do. Well, there you go. We run the same activity. So Allie's a good resource for y'all. Practice does stimulate development of physical muscle memory. It definitely is very important to emergency situations. So if a fire alarm goes off, we all know what we're doing, right? We're getting up, we're exiting the building, we're going outside. Why? because we've been doing it since we were 3 years old or 4 years old in kindergarten or pre-kindergarten. We practice every year, right? So that's why. So Patricia, for sure, it's important in emergency situations. And Todd, you're right. It's because of practice. So we know what we're doing because we do it over and over and over again. So same thing applies to your CERT teams, having that time to practice. All right, the next activity is called Face Off. So in this one, you are going to, oh, Raquel, let's see. I'm so sorry. I copied the wrong notes into this face-off one. What you're going to do is you are going to have a list, a deck of written out cards with different expressions. You're going to divide the group into 2 different teams. It doesn't matter how many people. You just divide the group into 2, and you're going to have lots of different facial expressions. And then each team member, I usually do this where I get enough where I can give each person a card, and they are displaying the facial expression, like happy, sad, mad, but then you get into worried, thoughtful, contemplating, right? So you get into all these deeper adjectives. And having people try to figure out what the emotion is behind it, because as you're working with public, we've got to be able to read emotions and we've got to be able to interpret. And so then you're, you know, if the team, so you're divided into 2 teams, the team who guesses the most correct from the other team, obviously, you know, I guess is the winner, if we have to have a winner and a loser. But, you know, I do keep scoring it just because it's fun. So, but what you're really doing is learning nonverbal communication. So, all right. So let's see here. The next activity, I will make sure, Allison, I'm just making you and I guess the whole training aware. I will have to make sure I give you the correct write-up for that because I put the wrong notes in that page. So, all right. So this activity is the hula hoop activity. All right, so you are going to get 2 lightweight hula hoops. The dollar store has ones big enough for the average person to fit through. So what I do is I take my teams, my whole group of people, whether I have 25 people in my class, my training class, or whether I have 12 or 6. But I divide the group into 2. And the teams are going to join hands in a circle. So this obviously will have to be done when restrictions of touching and 6 feet are lifted. So, but I have my teams, and we haven't done this in quite over a year. So, but what we do is we have our teams join hands in a circle. And then we place a hula hoop. We have one pair of people let go of hands. I put the hula hoop up on the forearm of a person, and they rejoin hands. So if you can imagine that, the hula hoop is, their arms are in between the hula hoop, in the center of that hula hoop, and the hula hoop is now resting on their joined hands, okay? So then what you are going to do as the person running the activity, as the leader, is you are going to advise them of the following rules. The objective is to get the hula hoop around the circle as quickly and as efficiently as possible. You must hold hands the entire time. The hula hoop goes around the circle. When the hula hoop goes all the way around the circle and is back to start, you're going to yell, done. It is a timed activity. And so when I tell them that I'll say go, then you're going to go. But I give them 2 minutes to decide what direction the hula hoop is traveling to get around the circle and how they're going to do that. After about 2 minutes, I tell the teams, okay, we're ready to start. So ready? On your marks. Don't forget to yell done when it gets back to the starting point. On your marks, get set, go. And then you start your stopwatch. Once the team gets the hula hoop all the way around the circle and yells done, you're going to make note of that time on a whiteboard, a flip chart, a piece of scratch paper, wherever you're recording that. And then when the second team gets their hula hoop back to the starting point and yells done, you record the time. Then I show the teams the 2 times. I give them kudos and congratulations and say, okay, I think you can probably do it better next time. So you're going to reset. Go ahead and keep the hula hoop on those wrists. Tell them to decide if they're going to change anything. You're going to give them 30 seconds to strategize if there's anything they want to change. After about 30 seconds, you're going to say, ready, get set, go, and they repeat it. And then you do the same thing. You record the time, They say done, you put it on the sheet of paper. You say congratulations, and you notate any improvements. Sometimes there's unimprovement because they've tried to change their strategy, so it's taken longer time. So then the third time, I like things in threes, so the third time, you're going to do this, you're going to say to the people, listen to the rules. You need to get the hula hoop around the circle as quickly and as efficiently as possible. You're going to determine if there's anything you want to do differently in your team, and then we'll start. The goal is that people figure out that they should hold hands with the hula hoop on that wrist and run around the circle to the starting point. However, most people are going to go through the hula hoops. You're going to have people doing the worm through hula hoops. By that direction, sometimes people pick up on that notation of listen to the directions, but sometimes they don't. So if no team gets it after the third try and you record the times, then what happens is you join a team and you physically move them. So I join the team, it starts on my wrist, and we run around the circle. The objectives for this activity is listening and not creating unnecessary work and roadblocks and barriers to efficiency. So whether people listen to out-of-the-box thinking or shut it down, you'll figure that out on your teams. Whether people are open to that comment earlier we had about coloring outside of the lines. You need good communication, and you'll also see improved time with practice. So that'll be another thing that you'll see on your teams when you run this. Last one is this group activity is the suggested introduction is to know that how many of you have ever found yourselves behaving in ways that you don't believe in, like gossiping or buttering up or doing the kind of thing just because that's the way things are done on your teams or in your groups. You're not really going to expect a show of hands. You'll raise your hand and you'll be like, oh, really? I'm the only one who does those things? Okay, well. So how many here then are sick and tired of things like gossiping and backstabbing and belittling and criticizing and not being a team player? And you'll get a lot of hands that raise on that one. As you go through the group dynamics, oftentimes there's pressure to say and do things that help us to fit in. So what you're going to do, the activity, is to have your learners stand in a circle, your team stand in a circle, and then start things by pointing at anyone across the circle that you like. So you're going to designate a person to start. The objective is that everybody in the circle is going to stay still. There's not going to be any talking, any giggling, any movement, other than the first person that you designate is going to point across at another person in the circle. And then that person chooses who to point across in the circle. The thing is, nobody can be pointed at by two people. So there's going to be, each person's going to be pointing at somebody else. What you're going to find, though, is that at some point, there's going to be some wiggling. There's going to be some talking. So once everybody points at everybody, you're going to say, okay, good job, apologize for pointing at the person. Let's do it again, though. This time, you're going to copy anything that the person you're pointing to does. They're your role model. And now you really start to see the exaggeration of movement and fidgeting. There might be laughter, etc. So the debriefing questions you ask in that activity is, what happened? We were supposed to stand still. We weren't supposed to talk. We weren't supposed to giggle. So what happened? How many of you don't know where the movements started from? And you'll have people who are arguing about that. Well, that person started it. No, they did, right? The key point is, did it really matter who started it once everybody else adopted it? So we're role modeling on our teams. We're role modeling, and we can see how quickly we can get into a cycle of behavior, whether it's good or whether it's not so great, because we adopt to the norms of the group. So we want to abstain from blaming and just acknowledge the fact that we all own group behavior. So we're all responsible for our teams. It's not necessarily one person's fault. It really illustrates how group behavior can then take a life of its own. So this is your opportunity to offer any ideas, any activity ideas to your colleagues. So we did have Allie, I believe it was, who said she does the puzzles, and I did do that one as well. So, you know, that's a great activity to be able to go through. It gets people thinking outside of the box. It gets people communicating. You have to work with other teams as well as your own. I see some people are typing. I'm just going to take a sip of water here. Excuse me. All right. So other activity ideas. I've got multiple people typing, so we're going to give you guys a second to type those in. I had a colleague here. She's no longer here. She went to be the associate vice president. No, she's not. Associate vice president. I guess that is correct. Of equity, diversity, and inclusion at a university. But one of my colleagues used to say, you know, we'll give everybody a chance to type because not everybody types 75 words a minute like Raquel. I don't type 75 words a minute anymore, but I probably am about still 55, 60. So I have to remember that not everybody types fast. All right, so you do a DISC assessment to see how everybody communicates best and what works with people as far as communication goes. That's great. To find out those different assessments, different personality types. We've done those in our organization as well. We've done DISC, we've done the color personality, we've done your love language, etc. So just to find out, and so we can be a little bit more patient and accommodating and understanding of the people that we work with. So you play the telephone game. Nice. So figuring out how that message changes the more people it goes through. Sorry, I got my thing scrolled. I got to get back to the comments here. All right, you play the guessing game as CERT. All right, good. Sorry, Karen. I see your 2 words per minute. All right, putting together a model airplane and see how in charge and do they read the instructions. Good. The telephone game works for you. Memory games, good. Train with and audit surrounding CERTs to learn from them, good. All right. The question was, what other activities do you do on your teams or have you participated in to help build camaraderie, to help your teams be cohesive, to help them learn from each other? So the thing about activities, one thing you want to note is that there should be a learning objective. It's really great to do activities. All of those ones that I said have learning objectives at the end. You can tie in communication. You can tie in working well together. You can tie in practice. Yes, it's fun, but you want to make sure that you're doing a debriefing as you are after you are doing the activity. So we use the ADA model. No, not the American Disabilities Act model. We do activity, discussion, and application. So you do the activity, and then you discuss and apply. And I actually do the discuss and apply together only because my brain doesn't remember the discussion to make the application later. So I do both simultaneously. So video calls can be harder to do. What you can do is you could break out those characteristics. You could break out those characteristics into chat rooms or breakout rooms and have a group of people then that chat room or breakout room come up with their 5 as a whole, and they have to agree to that and then come back together, and then, you have all of your breakout rooms. Maybe you'll have 3 or 4 breakout rooms. They each give theirs as a whole as the consensus that they came to, and then you have your mission and your core values for the team at large, because you'll see the overlap. So personalities plus, y'all do? Okay, good. The Spaghetti Tower and Marshmallow Challenge. Yes, I've heard of that one. I haven't had the opportunity to run that, so I'm a kinesthetic visual learner, so sometimes it's very hard for me to read directions. I need to do it in order to understand it to be able to then teach it. So the Human Knot, yes, I have colleagues who run the Human Knot. And that one I don't understand. So I do not suggest that one, Denise. But if you know it, you should certainly do it and write it up for your colleagues. So it is a fun one to be able to do. I just don't understand. I haven't figured it out yet in my brain. Cardboard tower building, nice. The DISC model is, what does it stand for? My brain can't shift into that. Directive. It stands for the different types of personality or current communication types. Sorry. One of you guys who runs the DISC or does the DISC on your team, will you fill in that answer for me, please? I appreciate that. The Twister game. All right. So that definitely probably is done when we're not on COVID restrictions, right? I really miss a lot of the in-person games that we get to do because again, being a kinesthetic visual learner, most of mine are you have to be close and touching. So, all right. The activity for confidence where you place a handkerchief over somebody's eyes and let them be carried away by the guidance they are given. Nice. All right. So, so I have been learning sign language for the past couple of years, and I went to, it's called Deaf Camp, a Deaf Immersion Camp. So I did that out in Arizona. It's 5 days of no talking, which is hard for a talker. But I did 5 days of no talking, and one of the games that we played, and I'm going to share this with you, it's a different version of telephone. It's not talking, though. It's visual. So you have everybody lines up facing one way, and then the last person in line, meaning the person at the end who's looking at everybody else in front of them, you have the second to last person turn around and look at them, and then that last person does some physical activity. They are either being a character in a movie, or they are, you know, like skydiving or something. So they're doing something kind of like charades or, you know, whatnot. They're either being a character or doing an activity. And the second person is watching that. And then when they get done, they get to watch it once. They might get to watch it one more time, no more than 2. Then they turn around, they tap the person on the shoulder who is on their other side. That person turns around and watches. And you see how the visual communication also changes. By the end, I think one person did Cinderella, and by the end, we had no idea what it was. It was like King Kong. So anyway, different way to run telephone. You might be able to Google deaf telephone, because there are YouTube videos of that being run as well. So, all right. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move on so you guys can keep collaborating and sharing ideas, because I want to wrap up and just leave you with some final thoughts. So the first one is that conflict's going to happen. Conflict on your teams is going to happen. It makes people sometimes feel uncomfortable. We have to deal with it. We need to move through it. It is a natural phenomenon, especially if you are working in diverse, highly skilled teams, because you've got a lot of people who know their roles, who know what they're doing. They've got a lot of knowledge, right? However, conflict can lead to disputes, but it can also lead to innovation and breakthrough. So acknowledging that conflict exists and figuring out positive ways to work through it is going to be important. Conflict allows us to develop. It allows us to grow. And one of the things you want to get to is, what is the root or the core of the conflict? You know, sometimes it's that they're, you know, maybe it's, you know, different personalities and different views of opinion. Sometimes it's that, you know, somebody feels undervalued or underappreciated. So conflict definitely is an opportunity to grow, for sure, Karen. So when people believe in each other, I'll leave you with this quote as we look at how to become a sustainable, well-managed team. When people believe in each other, and when they believe that each team member will bring superior skills to a task or a responsibility, that disagreements or opposing views will be worked out reasonably, and that each member's view will be treated seriously and with respect, that all team members will give their best effort at all times, and that everyone will have the team's overall best interest at heart, then excellence can become a sustainable reality. So this is really a nice mantra for teams. If you don't have one, if you want to look at engaging a new one or incorporating some of those characteristics or even this one, this is how excellence becomes a sustainable reality. Understanding that we've got to be reasonable, we've got to work through things with respect. We are going to do our best, whatever that means. So our post-test, we know the answers to all these now. So we can just very briefly go through them. We know that teams can accomplish more than individuals, very typically, but there are some benefits and some challenges to working on a team. And we know now some characteristics of high-functioning teams. Thank you so much, Sobner. I'm not sure how to say your name. I apologize for the DISC, dominance, influence, steadiness, and conscientiousness. Thank you. All right. So questions, thoughts, concerns, comments. I'm going to open that up for a minute, and I will also put contact information. So.
Thanks, Raquel.
You're welcome.
A lot of really great information. I see many of the questions seem to be more CERT related than team building related, so I'm just taking a look at some of them.
Like the outdoor activity, the hike activity, I see that, Brenda. Thank you for sharing that. You get to get out, get some exercise. It's a safe activity, and you're developing communication. That's great. If you can get outdoors, get outdoors. That's fantastic.
Raquel,
thank you for your feedback. Yeah.
Would pertain even to some of your earlier trainings, but like one of them that I see here is how does CERT coordinate efforts in real-time emergencies? I mean, a lot of that is built on the team building that they do initially. Do you want to expand on that a little bit?
I'm sorry, can you tell me, that was a little bit more than my capacity was for, Deb, I'm sorry. Or if I can see
how
the
does
question.
CERT coordinate their efforts in real-time emergencies?
Okay, I see that. I'm going to throw that back to some of our CERT team leaders because as you were looking at coordinating your efforts in real-time emergencies, I mean, we've got some fantastic experts on the phone, right, or not in the phone, but in the room right now. So how are you doing your real-time coordination? How are you notifying people? How are you getting people their roles and responsibilities? How does that communication get out? So I have multiple attendees chatting. I'm going to hope that one of them is one of our fantastic leaders. Teams should be built before the emergencies. Right, but how are you getting that coordination out? So that's the question.
But I think a lot of what you talked about today about the team building is kind of the foundation for how they'll work together out in the field.
Oh, okay, sure. I took it a different way. I'm sorry. I took the question as how are you getting that communication out to people to be able to go to the emergency? I apologize. My brain was thinking about that question differently. So yes, definitely. There's going to be practice. You're going to be engaging your team. You're going to be understanding the communication channels. You're going to be going through real life scenarios. And building that healthy relationship with each other so that your team can be cohesive. And then your incident commander, your mission manager, your supervisor, whoever that person is going to be delegating the roles that are going to be played. So I apologize, but I misunderstood the question.
Yeah, no, I think most of them are more about the field, but I'm trying to bring them back to the training. So even this next question that says, you know, how can a CERT organization work around the territorial attitudes when trying to interact with others first, with other first responders that they're trying to support? So, I mean, I think that bringing in some of those first responders to do some of the team building exercises would be a good idea. Wouldn't you agree?
I definitely do. And the other thing to do is to remember from some of our earlier trainings, managing conflict and effective communication. We need to manage ourselves first. we need to take a look in the mirror about how we're coming into a situation, because maybe we're coming in thinking this is our role too. So, because it takes two to have conflict, right? And then to understand that when people are stressed, they're not listening well, they're not communicating well, they're not processing and rationally going through their executive functioning well. So if we haven't engaged in the emergency yet and we're still at more of a baseline level, we really can only control ourselves, but we can then acknowledge this person might already be under the effects of stress. And so we might need to allow them a little bit of time to process, give them some opportunity, give them some options. Where do you want us to do? If you have options that you can, of roles you can play, then you're alleviating them having to think about it. Don't engage in power struggles, because people who are already on site are going to already be moving up in the stress cycle. So
that actually kind of feeds into the next question, which was, how do you deal with members who are proprietary about their roles and reject the helpers?
Yeah. I don't know you can't really force the issue, I guess, to a certain extent. Even if you go to, I'm going to use the current situation that we're in. My husband, has had an illness now for a couple of months, that he has to agree to the proposed help that they are offering him. In the end, they can't force the decision on him. So I'm going to use that only because it is it has been an emergent situation for some of the things. And as you're working in emergencies, unfortunately, and I know I have been guilty of this myself as well, because we get so ingrained and so valued in our work, and it becomes so much a part of us that we don't want other people, we want to make sure it gets done right, because we know it's going to be done right. And that unfortunately can carry across in all different types of sectors: first responders, emergency response teams, your CERT teams, the communities, whoever, Red Cross, whoever it might be. They have their role, and this is their responsibility. I'm one to say, if it's being handled, take a step back and offer your services as you can, but can you really force the issue? So I guess I'm going to throw the question back and say, is this something that we're going to get into a power struggle for? And if you are, is that going to be best for the community that you're trying to serve? So, so where can you engage where it's not as much of a power struggle?
I agree, and I certainly understand with what you were saying, and I could relate to it, because something kind of, especially if you are the creator, if it's a project that kind of becomes your baby, relinquishing control over that is very difficult for some people, myself included.
Yeah, and I'm going to go, so Ray has a good comment, and I want to acknowledge that, and I haven't looked at all the comments, so I do apologize, and but I do want to call out Ray. He says that we have built relationships with fire, EMS, IE, et cetera, over the last years, and that they realize then how much we can help. And I agree with that, because I have, even in retail, so I was a security executive with Target Corporation. I used to partner with our local police, bring them in, allow them to see our processes, talk to them about what we can do and our capabilities so that we could really be true partners. Target's, when I worked there, I don't know if it still is, I haven't worked there in about 12, 13 years, but when I worked there as a security executive, our goal was to be a resource and a partner in the community with law enforcement, because it was mutually beneficial. So we would support law enforcement activities and engagements. We recognized law enforcement officers who, were great responders. We would also work with EMS, et cetera. And then what that did is that facilitated that reciprocal relationship where they would come, and ask us if we've seen things in the community or for help or whatnot. So building a relationship is key, right? You just, that is paramount, and before the crisis occurs. So you're doing that on a continual basis, because a lot of times people don't know what you're capable of if you don't show them. So if you don't bring them in, if you don't include them.
Gotcha. I just have two other questions for you, and then we'll wrap everything up. But you were talking about some different exercises before, and one of them were different cards. Do you know if they have similar items that are available in Braille?
Ooh, that is a great question. I would think that if you were needing that accommodation, that you would be able to create it. But the cards that I was referring to are just ones that I would write on with a marker. So I would create them myself. That's why I'm putting that back to say that might be something you could create. So, because I created those facial expression cards. Yeah. Oh, the one with the deck of cards. That's interesting. I don't know if they make Braille playing cards or not. Let me Google that.
Okay.
Let's Google that.
While you're doing that, everybody appreciates the presentation, the PDF of the presentation, but they were asking about the instructor notes or some of the notes with the different activities that you went through.
Yes, we will definitely get those to Allison, who can then post them with the recording of the presentation so that you have those. And they do make Braille playing cards.
Okay.
Just so you know. Yeah.
Well,
I learned something new in the presentation as well.
If you're not careful, you learn something new every day.
That's right.
Thank you so much, Raquel, for coming back and taking the time to sit down with us tonight. We do have a number of webinars coming up that are on your screen that you're welcome to click on the registration link. We've joined forces with I don't know where my links just went, my screen disappeared, but we've joined forces with all the other regional offices. So this week we had a presentation that we did together with Region 5. Next week is Region 6, and so on and so forth. Throughout the regions, different preparedness steps that you can take as individuals, as community members, as CERT volunteers. If you know anybody, the application period for the Youth Preparedness Council is open through March 7th, I believe. It's a great opportunity for individuals to work with other students from across the country on preparedness projects that could impact their community. We also draw from that same pool to populate our regional youth preparedness councils. So if you know someone in 8th through 11th grade, please spread the word. All of our upcoming webinars can be found at the first link. There's a calendar. Today's webinar and all previous ones have been recorded and can be found at the second link. And if you don't already get Region 2 news, click the subscribe button on your screen. Take a minute to fill out that poll. The information that you provide us with helps us to drive future programming. Thank you, Raquel, and thank you to all our participants this evening. Have a wonderful night, everyone.